Hello everybody. Today I'm going to go ahead and run you guys through all the reporting options that we have available for local flavor in preparation for our upcoming discussion on this topic. So I thought the best way to do that would be to actually show you rather than type out copious amounts of paragraphs to explain what the issues are. So without much further ado, let's jump right into it. We're on CMAG right now, as you can see, and I'm going to take us right into the My Reports section. So once in here, now just so you know, I'm going to be using just one customer to do all my illustrations. I don't want there to be any divergence in data, so I want you to see exactly one data sample from one customer, and that'll make it easier to follow as we go along. So the first thing I'll do is, before I jump into all of these local flavor reports, I'm going to show you one additional area where reports could be found, which is already part of the issue, is that we have several places for these reports to be found. So Somers Gulf, here we go. Now we go to LF History. And on this screen, you can somewhat plainly see where there are closed out deals, when they were closed out. So the release date is the date that it went live. These are the numbers of certificates, how many were sold, and how many are remaining. So because there are 0 remaining, we know that they have all sold out. Now in this open deal releases section, you can see that there's 2 separate releases that went out on July 1st, and one of them is already sold 18. The other one is waiting in the wings until that previous one sells out. So this is one area where you can get this information. However, it's not the only area. If we go into local flavor, I'm going to start us off. I'm going to skip the very first report for right now. I'll save it for the end. So we'll start with the coupon certificate report. Now, the coupon certificate report used to actually be much better when it was on double take deals and double take offers. But when it migrated into local flavor, it didn't actually copy over all of the old elements that we used to find very useful. Instead, we have a view that's like this: coupon ID, which as a salesperson, to me that's a meaningless number. I don't even know who to reference that number with. I'm sure it's an internal thing, but it really doesn't have a function on this report as far as I'm concerned. The title of the coupon is always whatever the coupon is in the magazine. That's what gets tied into this platform here, and the only thing we have to go on is the expiration date. So from that, we can somewhat reverse engineer what magazine it actually came from, but it's certainly not an exact science. And when you have all these different types of offers available, it's very hard to figure out where it originated or what exactly it means, where we say total certs 1, 2, 3. Or does that mean somebody printed it out? Does that mean somebody brought it up on their phone or on their local flavor app? We simply don't know. Now, we do know that there is a redemption process, but we don't train our reps on what that means right now. It used to be that the redemption was very similar to local flavor certificates, but even I at this point in time don't know if that's still the case, and we offer no actual training or guidance in this respect. So this report, it doesn't have the bar graphs like it used to have, and you'll see those bar graphs in some of the other reports that I'm going to share with you here shortly. But it doesn't have that. It doesn't have where the people are coming from. It really doesn't have a whole lot of value to it in its current iteration. So this report is something that we really do need to talk about. But moving right along, let's go to the deal certificates report. We're going to talk about how some of these reports can also be consolidated as we go through this, because some of these are quite redundant. Okay, bear with me for a second. Here we go. Okay, so the coupon certificate report. Nope, sorry, it didn't go. Here we go. Deal certificates. So the deal certificates report is a report that shows a lifetime snapshot of this particular customer's local flavor related experience. So on this report, you can see that it has the total amount of certificates that have ever been sold and the total amount that have ever been redeemed. The redemption date is noted here. Certificate number for convenience is noted there. We have purchaser name, or now this is not going to happen in this particular case, but if a customer has been on Groupon or another affiliate, it'll say the affiliate name instead of their name there. This customer doesn't actually go on Groupon, so we don't have that. The value is going to be static for this particular customer. I'm sorry, the value is always static. It's the value of the certificate. So in their case, it's 120 for 240. We have the 240 there by default. If this was a restaurant, the pre-discounted column would have however much that the merchant would have put in. So in other words, however much the people spend when they get there. In this case, it's a golf place. They don't bother with that. They just put in exactly 240. However, you can see here, it's interesting, we sometimes have a zero value. And I believe the zero value happens when they press skip when they're redeeming, but I'm not entirely sure. I do believe it's an automated function though. Sometimes it comes in as 240 exactly, sometimes it comes in as zero. I believe there's a how it's validated, whether it's on a QR code reader or if it's from the merchant app. I think that plays into what the default value is, either 240 or 0, but we have not been able to confirm. We've seen enough of this to know that there is something happening in some instances where it's redeemed, where it comes in that way, and in other instances it simply puts down a 0. We see that with other customers as well. So, okay, so this report essentially just gives us the bare bones information, and it has a sister. The sister to this report is the merchant deal report. You can see right under the finance hold report here, the merchant deal report. This is the report that's meant to go hand in hand with that first one. However, the functionality here is just a little bit different, and this is one area where we can consolidate. Let me bring it up and I'll show you. So, if I check the show all deals, this report will now behave exactly as the deal certificate report you just saw a moment ago. It'll give us a lifetime snapshot of the customer's experience. By the way, this top area where it says 92 app downloads, we have not been using this data at all for a very long time. This data hasn't proven to be accurate. It's also the same data that's in the merchant validation app that we offer, but many times over we've questioned the nature of this data, and we always seem to get very different answers. So most reps simply ignore this because we can never really back it up. So this is something we can talk about. But moving on to the actual report here, you can see this report under product. It lists every single instance where they've run an ad. So we know that book 9/56/05/20 went live on 5/27, mailed 6/1. The end date is something that we can ignore. It's listed here, but there's no such thing as an end date. It ends when the deals sell out. So this is one area that's completely superfluous and could be gotten rid of. But moving on, so here you see this report. It gives us a it quantifies the customer's total experience. So when the rep comes to the customer and says, hey, let's review how you've done, this is what they're going to be showing them. They're not going to show them the first report I showed you a moment ago. They're going to show them this one. It's going to say, look, you've done 123 certificates have been sold. You've redeemed 53 of them. Your redemption percentage, therefore, is 43%. This is great. Let's move on to how many new customers you've had. Well, out of all the people who bought the deals, you've got 48 families that have never been here before, 16 families that haven't been here in over a year, and so forth. And we can go through this report that way. Down here at the bottom, you see the top 10 most popular selling zip codes. So we can say to this customer, look, Yorktown Heights, there was 12 families that came out of that area. We mailed the magazine there, that's great. But if you look at Eastchester, Eastchester is not an area where we actually mail the magazine. And that same magazine in Eastchester also has a Scarsdale section. Those two have made your top 10 selling zip codes, which means there is clearly a market in that area which is looking for your product. Next month, we should advertise in that area. And by doing this, we, as the reps, can secure an upsell for a customer like that by showing them this data, which is why this data is so vital to us. So this report, there's nothing wrong with this report inherently in terms of the data, the way that it's presented here. However, it can be simplified because the first report that we went over, which was the deal certificates report, that showed you that snapshot of every single certificate, the only time we really use that as reps is when a customer questions the data on the merchant deal report, and we can say, well, hold on a minute, you have questions about it? Let's go back to this first report and take a look and see exactly where your questions might lie. So we'll bring that up, and it'll say this person redeemed on this day, and so forth. I'm just gonna bring that up here one more time for your convenience so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so we have the same data sets here, 123 and 53, and we could say to the guy, okay, well, 616, there was a guy named Adam that came in, he redeemed, and you guys redeemed the certificate, and here it is, here's the data. So the one observation I can make before we even move on past these two reports is that the deal certificates report and the merchant deal report have two different ways that they function. The merchant deal report enables you to pull your own custom date range here, or if you want a lifetime report, you simply check that box. Well, with the accompanying deal certificates report, this isn't so. For some reason, we have a separate section here that is deal certificates single deal, and this enables us to pick one specific deal at a time. So for this customer here, we can just pick the last one, for example, and pull that up. But you can see by doing that, it still shows us the same data that it had shown us originally when we pulled the entire lifetime of the deal. So immediately, this throws up a red flag because this is incorrect, or it cannot be correct because it's not every it should not be correct because it's only pulling one deal instead of every deal that the customer has run with us. The second thing here is that this report could be consolidated to behave exactly as the merchant deal report does, where it has two functions. You can pick the date range, or you can select all deals, and it gives you that aggregated view. That already would make it much easier for reps, so they don't have to go and hunt down all the other deal reports that we have available for them. They can simply make the selection and run the report as necessary. So to give you an idea of what that looks like, I'm just gonna go back to June 1st for the same customer. I'm not going to check the box this time, and we'll see what that brings us. Again, ignoring this top data, which doesn't seem to change no matter what you do. So once again, down here, historically, we would see a whole different perspective. We would see just the date range that we had selected, and conversely, we would also see an abridged version of these results. We wouldn't see this 48 new customers, which is, as we know, the total. We would see, like 10 or 12, whatever would reflect that 1 month time range. However, something broke in this in the functionality of these reports as of I would say 5 or 6 months ago, where they stopped performing that function, and now they seem to just pull up these total values rather than the shorter aggregated ones that we're asking for. So something is very broken here, but the way that it should be functioning is exactly as I just described. So in theory, the deal certificates report, the deal certificate single deal could be merged into one where they show you the date range and give you the ability to hit the all deals. And it goes the same way for the merchant deal report / the merchant deal report single deal, which I haven't gone into with you guys because it effectively does the same thing that the merchant deal report does that I just explained, except it takes away the date ranges and only enables you to select the specific last deal that ran. So for consistency, I'm going to go ahead and pull that up for you guys for this same customer now so you can see how that works. We did this in the sister report, the deal certificate report here a moment ago, and we had produced for some reason the same values as we did on an aggregated version. So on this one, as you can see, I only selected one deal, but the same exact data set came up. We have 53 redeemed, we have 123 sold, and we have the 48 new customers. So obviously that's incorrect. If we no longer offer that level of detail, then we could simply do away with all of these reports and only provide the one option. But I don't believe that that is our goal. It's more likely that things are just, as I say, simply broken. So I hope I didn't confuse anybody so far, but basically the too long didn't read version of this conversation is that the deal certificates, certificate single deal, and the merchant deal report single and those reports could be consolidated into one line item. We can have a deal certificates and we can have a merchant deal report, and then they can have three different functionalities. We can select by issue, we can check the box for all deals, or we can select a custom date range. And of course, all of this is contingent on whether or not we can even calibrate it to work properly, but that is the idea here. So we can condense all of those reports into just simply two. That would already be very helpful, and be leaps and bounds ahead of where we are today at the time of this recording. So far, we have gone over the coupon certificate report. We've talked about the deal certificates report, the deal certificate single deal, the merchant deal report, and the merchant deal report single deal. We've also talked about the other area, which is the LF history, which shows us very similar information to what you can find in merchant deal report, but it's a different place, and sometimes we get different data from that place. So just real quick here, I'm going to take us back to that when I first to the very first report that I loaded up for us, so I can show you guys what that looks like one final time. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up one more time now is I want you to see that a rep who's out in the field, or a manager, they have to jump through all of these hoops every single day when they want to figure out what's going on with any given customer that they have. And this could be very maddening when it comes to tracking your inventory, or figuring out how close you are to selling out, or even what the rate at which you're selling out is. So as you can see in this case, I can't really make odds or ends out of these numbers. Open deal releases, we have 40. We have 62 total, out of which we sold 18. So we have remaining 44 certificates here. None of the data here that's presented really matches up with the data that is presented in the merchant deal report, which we have gone over a couple of times now. But that data should and historically used to be found exactly here. Used to be something that you could pull up this report exactly as I'm doing right now. You would scroll down to the end, and you would see that the very last entry chronologically which would have been that 7/1 date, would have the amount of certificates that you have. Now we have 2 for 7/1, so in theory, this is the same exact number that we just saw on the previous screen. It should be these 20 and these 42. These 20 and these 42 on this report versus these 20 and these 42 on this report here. But as you can see, this takes a lot of jumping around to verify the information, make sure that it's all correct. So it's a lot of legwork, and too often it's very confusing for us. So moving past this and into a more macro view, we're going to go to the overall deal sales report. Now, this is the report that most reps use in order to figure out what their total inventory looks like. So out of all the deals that I sell every single day, how are they doing? A natural question any rep might ask themselves. So when we get here, the first 2 columns are occupied by the merchant ID and the secret password, which is actually the login and the username and password for that specific merchant if they're using the merchant app that we provide them. So if a rep ever needs to provide that information, they could look here. 9 out of 10 reps don't actually know that, but that's what those numbers represent. What we don't have represented here is the account number for any of these given accounts. So that can be very frustrating because if I'm talking to Linda or I'm talking to somebody else and they want an account number, I now have to go back to my iPad, back to the order entry, look up the account number that way and provide that information. It's something simple that could be included here and could make our communication a lot easier. But at any rate, so this report is partitioned into 3 separate sections. We have the current releases, which is deals that are within the last 90 days. So anything that's gone live within the last 90 days, we consider current, and it will be found here. Pretty simple premise. We have the product. So we know that this guy here ran in book 2694/0420, which mails on 4/27. We see the start date is 4/22, and the start date is always a week before the mailing, so we have that information presented to us. We know how many days that this deal has been live. It's 89 days. And we also know that in the last 30 days, they've only sold 2 deals. Lastly, we know that this customer has been on Groupon. That does not mean that they are on Groupon today. It just means that at some point in time, they have been on Groupon. I would think that it would be more helpful for us to know whether they are or are not on Groupon now, as opposed to historically, but that's what this report currently represents. I'm not going to get too much into what changes I think should be made to this right now in my overview, but this is something that, of course, I will gladly discuss at length once we're all on the same page. So moving on from this, we can see, we can see that there's been very low activity on these current deals. This guy here, he's been live for 19 days, 0 sold, 19 days, 1 sold. Louis and Johnny's been live for, looks like 89 days. He's got 0 sold across the board. And that is the case for many of these other customers as well. Now, moving into the next section, we have the slow running deals, otherwise deals that have not sold out after 90 days of being live. So above you saw a lot of folks that are 89 days live. Tomorrow, if I bring this report up, most of them will have moved into this slow running category. And so the slow running category is exactly as the one above. It explains exactly how long they've been live and how many have sold in the last 30 days. It would be very nice if we could drill in to this 30 days and see how many they've sold in the last 60, 90, 120, and so forth. But this currently is the only way that reps can measure how fast their deals are selling out. So it's not a lot of data, unfortunately, but this is what we have access to. But just with this data, we can sort of make decisions, who should run, who shouldn't run, how fast are they moving. If we did an email with Jen Cardina that went out to the market, we can come back here the next couple of days, take a look and see if there's been a spike to any of these and see how effective that email campaign has been. If something like this is looked at on a macro level by managers of multiple regions, I imagine they would be able to see further extrapolated data. Unfortunately, I don't believe that we have currently this report set up in such a way that managers could pull multiple reps into the same sort of display where they can look and see how their entire region is doing in this format. But originally, when this report was created, that was the forward-looking sentiment. That's what we wanted to accomplish, but it never really went there. Now, mind you, as I go through this report, there are several departments involved with making these reports and presenting them to us. So I believe that the reports that I've been going through with you guys now is under the BAG department, which used to be under Mike Shapiro. This, I believe, is also true for the LF history, which was one of the first reports that I showed you guys. I believe that also comes from finance. In terms of what level of contribution Justin's department makes to these reports, at this point in time, I am no longer clear on that. It used to be that a lot of this data was housed under them and came from them, but I don't believe that is any longer the case. So we'll have to talk about the specific level of relationship that those departments currently have with each other, because it does seem like we have we have two departments with the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, and unfortunately they both need to be turned at the same time in order for us to get anywhere. And in this case, we don't even have the two departments speaking the same language when it comes to what this data should be like. So at any rate, please forgive my tangent here. I'm going to try to move on. So this is the the slow running deals 90 days and above. The last section you'll see is recently sold. Now this used to be a much larger section, because this section used to be recently sold out within 365 days. And for some reason, somebody changed it to recently sold within 90 days. Now this section doesn't provide us with nearly as much useful information as it used to. What it used to provide us with is a chronological perspective on deals that have recently sold out. You can see the first date that's listed here is the date that it went live. The last date is the date that the deal actually closed out. So one thing that would be very helpful is if those two could be split into their own columns, so they could be manipulated inside of Excel and further scrutinized. Putting them in the same column makes it almost impossible to do that. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that now, with it just saying within the last 90 days, I can only see one customer, because things have been so slow because of COVID. I know that only one of my clients has sold out a deal in the last 90 days. If we had the 365-day view, I'd be able to take you through the chronological progression of other deals that have sold out, so we can start to see how often between deals things close out. We can see the same deal, how often it closes out, which is very helpful, because the only other metric we have is how many were sold in the last 30 days, and once they sell, they disappear from the above section and come down here. Now you'll notice one thing that's missing here is that we have days live like we do in the above section, but we don't have sold in the last 30 days. For some reason, we don't have sold in the last 30 days in the sold out column, which is something that has needed to be fixed for quite some time. But without that information, we just simply don't know how fast these deals are selling out. So that's one thing that would be very helpful. So this this effectively takes us through all the reports that reps currently use. The last one that I'm yet to talk about is the all-time deal, all-time sales report. This one here, the all-time deal sales report, used to be a effectively a larger version of the overall deal summary report. Instead of 390 days or 365, it used to provide us with a lifetime perspective on how any of our deals have performed here. So it used to be in chronological order, so you would always see from the top the person that sold out yesterday. It would have yesterday's date. The person who sold out the day before would have the day before right underneath them. And in that way, we'd be able to take a look at this report and say, okay, let's look at the history of selling out in this area. Who sold out on the 1st? Who sold out on the 29th? Who sold out on the 28th? And so forth. And that was very helpful. At some point, it got resorted, and it doesn't have the sold in the last 30 days column in it either. So it sort of became a repository of information, but it's not particularly useful in its current iteration. You really have to kind of go hunting through here. And once we started adding FADs into the equation with CCO 2.0, it got very difficult to figure out who's running, when they ran, how many they still have available. So we're sort of all over the place with this data. With that said, this essentially concludes my overview on our local flavor reporting. You'll notice I didn't talk about the finance hold report. This is a relatively new report that was added into this section. No, but they didn't consult the advisory committee when they added it. They didn't consult the salespeople or managers. They just simply added it without any instructions. Looking into this section, as you can see, there's only 2 of my clients that come up. Why they came up, I'm not entirely sure. There are reasons given here, but they are in fact very vague. I will say that neither one of the customers is running in the current issue, so I'm not even sure why they're in this section to begin with. So I think that's a report that needs to be reimagined or repurposed, but it doesn't belong here now unless we're going to assign an actual function to it and explain to the general sales person what this is for or how they're expected to use it. So with that being said, I hope I didn't lose anybody in this explanation. I'll be more than happy to get into further details on this, but I think this gives a pretty good idea of what we're working with currently. I welcome any questions before the meeting. Feel free to email me or call me directly, and I'll gladly take everyone through it. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to speaking with everybody.